starting. You have the mic.
I'm starting. I have the microphone. That's what I just found out. Yes. All right. Mipla by start lo talk bisin. Mipla amamas lo bungi mupla na night. Na give him talk save lo yupla lo side blow RVA. Na God him make him want him something lo RVA.
Now mi plama mastre lo come. Now lift him up in name lo God. One time you plo geta. Thank you through lo. Ask him God lo mi plan. Now support him mi plan. And that's it. Good evening. Thank you for all the food and for the hospitality and fellowship. It was really fun to be here tonight and to run into some of you that we haven't seen in a while. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Kelly. I grew up here, went to Heritage High School, went to Fort Sanders Nursing School. I was a pediatric oncology nurse at East Tennessee Children's for a while. My husband is Darren Housley's brother. Jack and Jane are here as well. And he grew up in Papua New Guinea, and so once we were married, he wanted to go back, and that's how we ended up overseas. I have my husband, Bill, and we have two daughters, Madison and Sabra. So they were 5 and 7 when we went over to Papua New Guinea for the first time. And they are now grown. They came back. We didn't ruin them. They're fine. Came back out of the bush, went to Boyce College, graduated, had their degrees, are married, and the oldest one, Madison, has 2 children. And so I have 2 grandchildren. One I have met and one I have not met. So not this Monday, but next Monday, I will be meeting my husband's namesake, William. He turned a year in September, and I haven't gotten to meet him yet. Hold him so cry. Anyway, excited about going home and seeing them as well. Really fun to be here with my parents, too, and catch up with everyone, Bill's parents. When we went over to the background of RVA, when we went over to Papua New Guinea, we went with New Tribes Mission, same as Porter, good friend of ours there. He's working on the other side of the border. But we did the normal indigenous model. We did the language learning and the literacy and the alphabet and translation Bible lessons, training them, equipping them to reach out. There were 9 villages in our talk place, in our language group. And so they've all been reached with the gospel. So we're not God, we can't save them, but they have the translation, they have teachers, they have Bible lessons. So people that want to hear about God in the Inapong language can hear. We're still working on the translation. I think there's like 13,000 verses through the portions of the Old Testament and then all of the New Testament, and we have about 1,000 left. So as we got to the end of the indigenous model, we had meetings with our elders and started realizing, okay, they're asking for some more help, and they're going to need more help for the second generation. So that's basically what RVA is. And I found, skipping ahead a little bit, but we're just going to mix it up. Okay. One of the verses that the Lord gave us as we were coming home is this Isaiah 41, verse 4. And I'm just going to read it quickly. It says, "Who has done such mighty deeds, summoning each new generation from the beginning of time? It is I, the Lord, the first and the last. I alone am He." And I just love that verse. If you can just imagine for a minute, if you were born into one of these remote locations and you hadn't learned to read and write and you didn't have any schooling or education and you became a believer and then you had a child and they're growing up and they are hearing God's word, they are able to read the Bible, you are training them in certain areas of Christian life. But to be able to look at the sun and the moon, I mean, you all have such a blessing. Everyone here is educated, right? We look at the sun, the moon, the stars, we look at the fields, we look at something growing, and you have all this science in your head, right? You see the moon phases and you know the placement of the planets and why the phases are happening and what's happening. And they have none of that. So if you can think about our elders' plea, they did a little video and I didn't have time to translate it, but there's a quote in the middle of it. One of our elders said, "Please, you have ways to help your children, but we have been ignorant and uneducated for so long, and we need help to get our children started." And basically that's RVA. How do we help them? What if your only choices were to send your kids out to Lutheran or Catholic schools to be catechized, by them, or no school at all. You don't send them. I mean, you can't homeschool them. You don't know. You don't know. You just learned how to read 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So where do you start, and how do you help your kids see the order that's in science and the order that's in math and the order that's in grammar and linguistics? How do they get to know and see their Savior in everyday life if they're not taught? They have no idea about history. They don't know about the Roman Empire. They don't know anything except what was going on in that 5-mile radius for the last 100,000 years, whatever, 100 or 1,000 years. Just clarifying. So anyway, that was kind of the verse we were thinking about coming home. It's amazing. The Lord, he is going to pull people out of this new generation to continue his work. He gave us all one job. He's still all about the Great Commission. He's still bringing his children home, and he is making sure that people from each generation are going to continue that. From the beginning of time till now, it's happening, and it will continue to happen. And so it's exciting for us to think about being a part, to be a platform to get them started, and then hopefully in 8 to 10 years, we have educated kids that want to come back and continue with RVA and be in the community schools teaching and doing the things that we're doing right now. But we want to see the second generation really have a key role in evangelism. So we're excited about it. As far as tribal, is that you or me? Thought I trained you better than that, but keep trying. I don't remember what I was saying now. Yes, tribal kids. So it really is exciting to have a little platform, and we do hope that they continue that. It's also exciting for us to have people like Marissa. So that's my thank you tonight to you all. Thank you for sending her over. Being able to work with her. This is your next generation, right? This is our next generation here that's continuing on. And she has been a very competent and vibrant worker. She totally shares my love of like this daily dose of Bible and prayer. We've spent many nights out on the swing, talking and praying. And just what a blessing that she has the same love and joy. She likes to work, love to work, and finding joy in that work and finding joy in just the simplicity of the work that God's given us. So it's been a real blessing for us to work with her. She's been a great asset to the RVA team there. So thank you for sending her. Thank you for your support of RVA. As we've transitioned from tribal ministry into this kind of urban setting, it's been a big jump for us, a big leap of faith, jumping off into areas where we're not sure where the road goes because we don't have someone to follow now. And the Lord has been gracious, merciful, amazing in what he's provided, and a lot of that has been through you all. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for this thing.
Even this untrained thing. No, I want to start with saying I want to give a big thank you to you all too, because not only have you supported me, I've been here since I was 5, and so you've supported me spiritually, and you've helped to train me spiritually, and you've given me the gospel my whole life and preached it to me. And so that's a big thank you, is that I can, and then the way that you have sent me out and have supported me throughout the year. I have gotten messages from many of you all saying, hey, I'm thinking about you and I'm praying for you. And a lot of you are supporting RVA and me financially, and you've been faithful to do both of those things, which just is a huge blessing and that I don't deserve, and it's not for me anyway, so that's awesome. And then responses to newsletters too, the way that a lot of you actually read them. I found out recently that they're a little longer than most. No, which is great, but a lot you actually take the time to read them, and you care about what's going on in P&G, which is a long ways from here, and you have a love for our students that you've never met. And so just I want to give a big thank you to you all for the way that you've supported me personally, but the way that you're pouring into the lives of our students from a long ways away. So that's kind of our start. And then we have a video that we're going to show you. It's going to explain a little bit more of the history of RVA, where it came from, how it started, and it'll also give an intro to us as a staff. I know a lot of you, but some of you I don't. And then it'll also introduce Bill and Kelly, and then Craig and Marcy Hammonds as well are also working there. A lot of you know them. They're also from this home church. The video will do that. And then at the end of it, there are also a lot of different prayer requests and things that we have right now, different needs that we have at RVA that it will introduce. And so we want to show you that video. And after that, I've got some different things that, as I was sitting down thinking about what I wanted to share tonight, I really it's hard sometimes to explain how we see God working at RVA because we see his hand in so many different things, and a lot of them are little different things that we see throughout the day. And so while I can't really sit down and tell you, okay, today God made this student say, me too, instead of I also. I mean, I can tell you that, but it's those little moments where we see a lot of growth and things where we see the Lord. And so I made some notes of different ways that we see the Lord working because it's over and over and over again, the way he is faithfully just working and growing and changing things in the lives of our students and in our lives and just in the community around RVA as well. So we'll show you this video, and then we'll share a few things after that.
I'm going to give you 3 things to think about while you watch the movie or the video. One thing is if you're a teacher or if you're a construction person, if you're Andy, we're looking for help, so be paying attention, okay? And then number 2 is our kids. At the end, you're going to see some of our kids. And remember, these kids were speaking their indigenous language and some Talk Pisin, which is the national Creole, but their national language is English. And so we only speak, once they come through the RVA gates, we are only speaking in English with them. And so just to hear them at the end, it's hard. I mean, we put the script up for you, but I mean, the fact that they are saying and working and spending all day talking, listening, and answering in English is huge. The third thing is, watch for our RVA colors. Go Vols.
Also, we'll have time for questions later, so be thinking about questions that you have.
Hard to believe, but we are finally at the end of the very first school year.
It feels like we blinked and it's all over.
So it's time for a little bit of a review just to see what the Lord's done this last year here at RVA. God has truly done amazing things for us here in Papua New Guinea. Of course, the story starts a long time ago, way back in a remote village of Itutan, where Kelly and I lived and worked and did literacy, we did Bible curriculum, and we're still working on a translation, a New Testament translation for the church there. As we began to think about what was next, we realized that the second generation had new and different needs when the normal stages of the work were completed. At that time, I was also functioning as director of our mission here in Papua New Guinea, and I had made rounds and spent time with church elders, and in many of the churches across the country of Papua New Guinea, they were all saying the same thing. The next generation needs help. We can only take them so far with our lack of education. Yes, they can study the Bible, and yes, they can teach, But as they began to step out of the remote and into the other local and urban areas, they realized that they were unequipped to handle all that the outside world was throwing their way.
As we spent time talking to the believers about their children, we realized that we had kind of come to the end of the indigenous model and needed something a little different. About that time, we read a dissertation by someone in South Africa which talked about the concept of interdependence and how many overseas cross-cultural workers never get there because they get stuck in thinking that is either paternalistic or indigenous. While both lines of thinking are important at different stages of ministry, the interdependent model allows for mature believers and cross-cultural workers to use both their God-given gifts and resources for the sake of continuing the spread of the gospel together. That is what we were hearing, that it is especially important in view of the upcoming generations who are moving to urban areas seeking education and trying to fit into larger national and global culture.
So with the elders from our own village and some elders from another province, West New Britain, we began to pray about this, and the Lord gave us the idea of RVA. And we all stopped and just started praying and thinking through what the Lord could do with RVA and how we could pursue this new idea of interdependence. We heard our village elders make their plea that for their children to become a bigger player in reaching Papua New Guinea, they would need a place for their kids to be educated. They needed to be able to hear God's truth and to be safe as they learned. And some of this village passion rose from having to send their kids off to school far away, many days' journey, and they would live with whoever they could find to take them in. And the other option was just not allowing them to go past the local 6th grade level.
We kept walking forward, and at this time, the Global Partners International Ministry Team and New Tribes Mission Papua New Guinea leadership began helping and encouraging the vision. They provided advice and donated a piece of mission land located in the Madang province. Slowly, we walked forward, praying and trusting, and over the next 3 years, we watched the Lord provide paperwork, land, money, and startup staff. The village church and us, we could sit down together and tell you some pretty amazing stories of how God kept clearing the path. There were times when we literally would sit down and say, we can't do it anymore. God, if you want this thing to go forward, you're going to have to move it without us because we are stuck. So the Lord brought us through the beginning stages of RVA, and we built, we researched, we met with government officials and statesmen and national education personnel. We learned and prayed, and the Lord kept bringing things into our path as we needed it. He brought to us a national curriculum which was available, approved, and it would also allow our PNG students to sit the national exams when their courses were completed. Our vision was moving from a small kind of pieced together school and curriculum into a nationally recognized and approved school. It was clearly just God at work, and while he was working, he sent an RVA family named the Kitchens over to help us get started, and they jumped in to orientation with their family. They helped build and prep and plan and help us kick off RVA. The extra hands were a blessing. Things were falling into place, and we are super thankful for the fingerprints that the Kitchens had on the early days of RVA. Lord was also bringing another huge blessing to our team at this time as we stood on the precipice of beginning this educational endeavor. Her name was Marissa Myers. She was from one of our supporting churches in Tennessee, Broadway Baptist, and was just what our VA startup needed.
Hey, I'm Marissa. I first heard about RVA about 3 years ago. Bill and Kelly had come in from PNG, and they were at Broadway sharing about RVA one evening at our evening service. Almost as soon as I heard about it, I kind of knew that it was something the Lord was asking me to be a part of. And so I didn't really say anything that night to anyone. I just started praying about it. And I prayed about it for the next year or so. And then the Lord sent Bill and Kelly back to share more about RVA and how he was working in their lives and in the lives of those around them to bring it about. So after that, I spoke with Kelly that evening and said, this is really something I feel like the Lord has laid on my heart to be a part of. And I want to consider coming to teach at RVA. And step 1, step 2, step 3, and now I'm here. And I've been here for about a year now, and we just finished our first year of school, which was really great. And so, yeah, I'm just thankful to be here and be a part of it.
In January, we received our first 17 students from the Ramu and local Madang area. Kids were coming from our 3 village churches, and we were ecstatic. The classrooms were ready, and the day of dreaming was over. It was go time. Kids arrived, we oriented them to the new interdependent expectations, and just like that, school had begun. An elder family from the village was serving as dorm parents, and they settled into their new student area, what has affectionately become known as Grace Place. Kids would write about their home away from home in their journals for English, saying that at Grace Place they felt quiet and safe. First term went off without any real problems, and as the second term fired up, the Kitchens began to look to returning for their daughter's graduation and wedding. It became clear that Marissa and Kelly would need some additional help. We began to pray and reached out to our churches and the RVA board for ideas. And the Lord provided Craig and Marcy Hammonds from the same church in Tennessee. Marissa and Kelly only had to keep things running for about a month on their own. Help was on the way.
Hi, we're the Hammonds. I'm Craig, and this is my wife, Marcy. When did we first know about or learn about RVA? Actually, in 2011, I had the opportunity to come over for a short-term, 2-week opportunity to help when the church was still quite young. Came in with a couple of other guys, got to actually learn about the church and kind of see it firsthand, in its young stages. That was actually kind of the genesis for getting us to the field here in Papua New Guinea. Later in 2011, that same year, Marcy, myself, and our 2 sons actually came to join the support ministry side of things in our support base up in the Eastern Highlands at Lapilo, and actually taught Bill and Kelly's daughters while we were there. And I guess while we were involved in the mission school up at the support base, we knew that God was kind of leading Bill and Kelly in this direction as the church was growing, and they were essentially seeing the need for an opportunity to invest in the next generation of believers from there in the Inapong language group. And so, I don't know, we've probably known of the RVA idea since close to its infancy. In 2019, we came and actually helped to build the house that Kelly and Bill are living in right now with a team from our home church, Broadway Baptist. After we came to the field, our entire family went in for at least one visit. We kind of had a connection with the Itutong Church for many years, so it was just kind of a sort of an organic process that's kind of led us here.
As the Hammonds were settling in, the Lord also brought us a teacher from NCA, New Manoy Christian Academy in Lapilo, Emily Bonner. And she came for the summer just to help out for a little bit, and it was a great blessing, and the Lord really just provided for us in having her here that summer.
And just like it was for you, 2021 was just crazy with COVID. But the kids kept being pushed, disciplined, held to high standards, taught in their national language, which is English, and we saw them developing into students who would really love logic problems, tricky math, diagramming English grammar, and writing short scientific essays. We also saw them understanding more and more about their justification and now their sanctification. Why are they here on this earth, and why are they at RVA? What is our goal as we are pouring into them? What is the expectation? For 1 year, we got to be watched and to share with them what we want them to see as respectable, educated PNG citizens equipped and ready to do whatever comes next. In business, preaching, politics, missions, medical, teaching, whatever. Just simply to honor and glorify God wherever He chooses to use them.
It's true. RVA is a mentoring school, so we live with them, teach them, cry with them, rejoice with them, hold them when they're sick, walk them through times of frustration. It is a holistic place of learning. This can be super exhausting and super exhilarating all at the very same time. It is discipleship. It's a lot like parenting. Every move we make, everything that we say, every moment of our day is being watched and often mimicked. And we are reminded of this often when we get short catchphrases, like when we say to a student, gracias, and they say de nada, or we give them an instruction and they come back with okie dokie. And it's just really fun. It makes us smile to see the influence just in little things like that, but then that is such a big reminder that we are really affecting them and they are watching and they are mimicking us. And so
it's absolutely amazing to see where these students have come from, where they are now at the end of their first year, and how the Lord is using us to point them towards Him.
The whole basis of RVA is, is trying to, seeing a way to strengthen the church for the next generation of believers that are coming up, and that's who some of our students are. The gospel has clearly been presented in Itutong, and there are clearly believers, and the church is growing, but there is a need for, just for strengthening for those who are going to be coming along, that are going to be, I guess, kind of taking the reins of the church, so to speak, and being future leaders, and moving them even deeper into an understanding of who God is, of what He's doing, of how He's working in their lives. And we get a picture of that in our smaller Sunday morning meeting, and kids just kind of sharing their own personal testimonies and things that God has been showing them. Even just this past week, as students were going back into the bush, and they, there an accident on the road that they were involved in, and their response was one of praise, of thanking God for protecting them and for keeping them safe, and the fact that everyone there was, even though they were bruised and banged up, were healthy. They were alive. To see that, to hear that testimony from them, it's humbling in some ways, and it's challenging in some ways to hear that, because all of our tendency is to not go in that direction.
I think one of the biggest differences between working here and the time that I spent working in the States is that in the States, when I worked, it was kind of a 9-to-5 situation. You went to work, you did your job, and then you went home, and you didn't see the kids till the next day, and you weren't a part of their life outside of those classes. And that is exactly the opposite here. There is you come to school, and they're there 45 minutes early, and they're asking you for homework help, and it's awesome. And then you go home, and they live 5 steps from your front door, and they're coming and they're asking you for help, and they love to spend time with us as much as we love to spend time with them. And so our lives are just constantly on display. Everything that we're doing, they end up doing too. They watch us all of the time. And so it's kind of a challenge to us spiritually and personally, I think, just to be people who are walking well with the Lord, because if we're not, then we're not guiding them very well. And most of the purpose of RVA is to disciple well. And so that's one of the ways that you can be praying for us. I think I shared in one of my recent newsletters the verse that's kind of been tugging at my heart in the way that I walk, and it is 1 Corinthians 15:58. We are to be people who are steadfast and immovable because of the hope that Christ gives us. And so I would ask you to pray that as a staff we are people who are steadfast in the way that we walk and immovable, that nothing shakes us, and that we can share that hope that Christ gives us with our students every day.
So here's some prayer requests. Firstly, just pray for the returning students. That they were all tasked with assignments to help in the local village churches around the Ramu, and we were excited for them to support the local church elders in this way. Also, you can pray for the new incoming students, and for us as we start from scratch again with a little English comprehension or speaking ability. Pray for their hearts to be open to the gospel again. Many of them have heard it as kids in the village, but we just want to be able to share it with them again. We wanted them to hear it afresh in a way that moves their hearts and gives them passion for those who haven't yet heard.
The third request that we have as a team right now would be that God would lay it on the hearts of individuals and these churches, small groups, to come alongside and sponsor one of our students. And this is, prayer, encouragement, financial support. The financial support would go for the cost of uniforms and personal supplies and school materials.
great opportunity for families, families with children, young children, to actually have a connection with a student who's here at RVA, and to be able to correspond with them, just to learn about what their life is like here. Prayerfully consider if the Lord would lead you in that direction, whether it's individually, family, church. And then finally, the fourth request is just regarding our staffing and staffing needs. We're quickly approaching year 2, and we're already beginning to see that we're going to have some staffing needs. I mean, right now we've got 3 full-time teachers, full-time staff members, and then Bill is teaching part-time. We would take staffing help for most any subject. We do see that the English as a second language, the ESL component here with the RVA students is huge, because it kind of goes across all of the subjects. To even have a second English teacher to be able to try to help our students to grow in their understanding and knowledge, comprehension of English, that would be great. We have multiple subjects, 6 subjects per class, and 2 classes next year that we're going to be trying to cover. So certainly, we would appreciate prayers for our staffing needs. And if you know any individuals, or if you yourself are an individual that is a teacher and might consider coming for a time to teach, we would love and appreciate to hear from you in that regard.
One last prayer request here, just on the infrastructure side. In 2022, here's kind of what we're looking for and going to be headed towards. We're going to be developing a library. We're also going to be working on a science center and a computer center, things that we're going to need as the kids progress in school, and also a backup generator to supply the center with backup power. Right now we work on solar, which works excellent. It's really good. But the problem is that sometimes we'll get 2 or 3 days of rainy weather, and unfortunately no solar, so we need a backup generator just to kind of keep things going.
PNG is opening up again for teams. They are fairly strict. They're following Australia's protocols, and right now they're opening up short-term visas for people who have been vaccinated. So we have gone for almost 2 years now, and we have missed out on, I think it's 7 teams that we've missed out on. So it's been a lot of man hours and a lot of help. So we are a little behind on our building schedule, and so we are looking forward to maybe some people getting back over and helping us out a little bit in that way in the coming year.
Hey, thanks for listening to our report, and we appreciate and are grateful for your support of RVA.
Each day I rise, I'll fix my eyes on your promises over and over, that I am loved no matter what, and you are enough over and over. This is the day that you have made. I will rejoice.
That hasn't changed. And I have to give you 3 seconds, right? Wait. Hi. Always trip. Can we start over?
My joy, my rest.
Ready?
On my circumstance or
What's your mermaid pose?
No.
Okay, ready?
Wait, what?
Are you
What am I
ready?
talking about? Oh, I remember.
It's the middle of term 3, which means that we have completed 21 weeks of classes.
That's 105 days of school with these guys. Many of you all have taken part in our lives by praying, supporting, and sponsoring some of the Ramuelli Academy students.
So we thought we'd make a video to show you.
Our day begins with line up at the flagpole every day.
Mr. Hemmings gives announcements, then he always prays.
Miss Miles make us sing out strong, then recite the pledge.
I saw the other teachers stand up straight along the edge.
Auntie Viv takes attendance, then Uncle Bill will teach us.
He reads the Bible to us and he makes a lot of speeches.
It's just because he loves us and he wants us all to grow.
He wants us all to think about the things we really know.
Our best class is drama, English, listening, and thinking.
Mrs. H teaches parts of speech like verbs that are linking.
She makes us edit, find mistake, diagram, and level.
And teaches us about stories, narrative, and fable.
Miss Mary's mathematics test is difficult but fun.
Division and place value learning thousand hundred ones.
We learn about equation and balancing and sums.
But when she talks and makes us laugh, we like it very much.
Then it's next though with our own Mr. Science.
He makes us answer questions and he won't accept the silence.
We really love learning all those science kinds of things.
Water cycle, respiration, flying things with wings. Personal development and social science too.
We learn about our government and causes all they need.
Volleyball and soccer and running racing. In PE.
In music, we play instrument and learn.
We ever little lunchtime song we ever Friday chant.
Our teachers always said,
You can!
we cannot say.
We can!
We work hard and we play hard every day and every night.
We cannot do what's easy, but must try to do what's right.
We are different colors, but we are family, we are team. Our numbers are not many, but we are working on our dreams.
We just want an education and a time to take a turn. To show the world what's in our heads and all that we can learn.
Thank you for supporting RBA!
So did you notice the colors? Orange and gray, yeah. And then did you notice our kids? Aren't they awesome? They're so fun. They come early to school. They're always wanting to be there early. We had to make a rule that you can't be, we start at 7:45. You cannot come up to the classroom before 7:15 because we're getting ready for class. But they're there at 7, just waiting. They're so excited. They want to learn. They know that this is their chance, and they're putting 100% into it. And then I just wanted to mention two things. Did you see the guy with the volleyball? And it sounded like he was a little bit impaired with his speech or something. He's actually deaf. So he's from our second outreach from Bogan Church. They love him. They sent him out for us to work with. My dad set him up with hearing aids, and he is hearing, and he is talking in English. And he struggles sometimes, but he'll come and get help. Marissa spent a lot of math hours with him. And he's just precious. He's just really trying to learn. And he struggles in those areas, but on Sunday, when we're talking and, you ask for open sharing, his heart is full. He is in the Word, so it's really cool to see that. And then I just also want to mention Craig. I said thank you for Marissa. I should have also said thank you for the Hammonds. They have been such a blessing. He's an amazing science teacher. Sometimes I go over and just sit in his class because I want to hear what he's saying. The kids absolutely love him. And just keep praying for them. They made a huge transition right in the middle of the school year. It's very different from Lopilo. It's a very hot, very different type of work. And so just pray for them. They're doing well, and they love it. And they said to tell everyone hello. But yeah, just continue to pray for them because they'll be there by themselves for a little bit. I think that's it.
So like I told you before, now that you've kind of seen the video and you know a little bit, you've heard from our students and you've kind of seen what life looks like a little bit at RVA, just some of the ways that we see the Lord working in their lives and in their hearts kind of on a daily basis or more practically, I guess. One of the things in English, Kelly does a lot of journaling with them, and so she'll give them a question and have them just answer with a paragraph or something. And one of the things that we see in that is we see a lot of them expressing an interest in actually going to help others now that they're receiving help and they're receiving education and they're receiving just aid in different ways. A lot of them have a heart already to be giving back to their communities and to other communities in other ways too. We've got some that they have big dreams. Some of them want to be doctors, and some of them want to go into law. I think one of them wants to be a pilot, and a lot of them are expressing interest in becoming teachers, which is incredible. And so I don't know, it's really encouraging to watch the Lord kind of bring them from, I don't even know what I would want to do. A lot of them, and she can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think a lot of them prior to an education like this would have just anticipated staying in their places for most of their life. And not that this is a bad thing, but it would have been mostly just you garden and you cook for your family and you just do life every day. And that's wonderful. But when they're given these opportunities and they're given these chances to learn, and they can now take what they've learned academically, yes, but they can apply it biblically, and they can take the gospel and they can go share it with others, and they can teach them to read the word for themselves, and they can teach them to study, and they can teach them to look at the moon and know why it's there and know there's a God that put it there. It didn't just show up. And so it's amazing to watch them kind of grow into these things and grow into this heart that the Lord is creating for them to go and give that to someone else, what it's being given to them. And I think one of the things that they're learning from us, another thing that we see a lot is they'll say, we're really thankful for our teachers because you're here every day. That's not something that they had before. They dealt with a lot of teachers who just wouldn't be at school that day because it was raining, or they just didn't feel like coming, or just a lot of different reasons. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. But for them to have teachers now that are actually at school every day has really been something that I think may have surprised them and kind of been a challenge in a lot of ways, because if we're there every day, that means they are too. So I think it's been challenging in some ways too. But one really cool thing I think I see in them and the way the Lord is working on them through that is that we have an opportunity to show them what it means to be doing something faithfully. And so when we are faithfully showing up and we say we're going to be here every day, and we are, they get to see that in our lives, and we get to model that for them. And so that's kind of then we want them to go and to take that into other churches and say, you know what, this is how we walk with God too. We walk with him faithfully. And when we say we're going to, I don't know, when you say you're going to follow Jesus, you follow him faithfully. You don't just do it at church on Sundays or something like that. You walk with him all the time. It's not a temporary thing. And so to have the opportunity to show that to them and to see them reflecting that is really, really incredible. And so we're really thankful for the way that the Lord is doing that with them. Kelly mentioned Kenneth. That's one of our students. He's the young man that you saw in the video. He is absolutely incredible. And one of the greatest things, I think, is when we have our little small group together and we give our kids a chance to do, we call it open sharing. Bill lovingly says, this is not a time for open staring, just to encourage people to talk. But he will have an open sharing time. And so we just ask them to come and we ask them to read a verse and to share a little bit about what they're doing on their own without us, and what the Lord is teaching them in their lives. And so the things that they come with are really amazing. One that stands out to me is this young man came and he said, you know what, I can't hear, and I don't have 2 good ears, but the Lord has given me 2 good eyes. And that was his heart. His heart was just thankful. And the number of times that he will stand up and say, hey, just a reminder, Jesus died for you. And he will sit there and preach the gospel to all of us. And it is amazing. And he'll do it with clarity and with passion and with a heart that is clearly in love with the Lord. And so it's absolutely amazing to hear that. And then another one that stuck out to me was another student that got up, and that verse that I shared in the video, the 1 Corinthians 15:58, I have it as a screensaver on my phone. I had not shared it with them. They didn't know this. He came to church one Sunday morning and said, you know, I really was reading, and this verse really stuck out to me. And it was that same verse that he had just... I mean, it's amazing to watch the Lord be guiding these kids into these, I say kids, they're not kids, they are adults, guiding these students into just molding them and growing them into little disciples. it's incredible. And just watching them read verses about being sanctified in their lives and how it hurts, and it's wonderful. It's really it's been an incredible experience to do that with them. And so those are some of the things I think we see the Lord working in, and ways that we see him doing that. So one of the things we shared in the video, one of the prayer requests, was that we are looking for sponsors for these students, for next year's students coming in. These sponsorships, they go for, you saw them wearing a lot of the same shirts and stuff, that we do require them to wear a uniform every day. That is important because it kind of eases distinctions between them and just kind of makes them become a team a little bit easier. We want to make sure that they all can become a really strong team together. And so that goes towards uniforms, and it goes for hygiene items, personal things that they're going to need, and different classroom supplies that they may need in order to do all the things that we ask them to do during the school year, and to be able to just maintain themselves well, and to be prepared every day as they come to class. So those sponsorships are a 6-year commitment is what we look for, because we are asking that you would sponsor the same child or student from 7th grade to 12th grade. And so each year as they progress, you'll continue getting information and letters about those students. And so that's kind of what we're looking for in those. They'll write back to you. I actually have a few, we call them belums. It's the little bags, string bags, yes, that they carry around with them. That's just kind of one of the P&G things. Instead of like a purse, it's just a little bag. Anyways, we have a few of those tonight that the kids have sent for their sponsors here. So we brought a few of those that we get to give to the sponsors here now. And so it's just a really cool opportunity for you to be investing in them and helping them to do that. So if you're interested in more of that, we have a few flyers, a paper thing that we can give you about just about that and the details of that. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Thanks. Okay, I think that's most of it. One thing I told you before was that we would have time for questions. So in lieu of Bill not being here, not a time for open staring. No, I'm just kidding. But if you do have questions, if you do have things that you're wondering about, and that can be anything, really. If you do have things that you'd like to know, we'll give you time for that.
While you're thinking of your great questions, I'll answer one that you probably have in your head. As you're looking at our 7th grade students, you might notice they're, a bit mature. In P&G, it's normal that the age for 7th grade is much older than normal here. Schools are not consistent. There are not consistent teachers. You may have grade 6 one year and not have it the next 2 years, so you have to wait until it becomes available. So we just in Itutang had our first grade 12 graduate 2 years ago, and he is 29-ish with 2 kids. So he has had to wait and go. He's actually had to move up to Goroka, where the Hammonds were living before, find a school, find someone to live with to try to finish out his time. So it is a complicated and hard road to get an education in Papua New Guinea. So what we're trying to do this year, because of COVID, we had a couple of backed up years. So we do have kids between 15 right now and 22. But we are backing it down and asking the church to recommend and nominate people, because there's a testing process, but people that have just come out of 6th grade and are younger than 17. So we're hoping to get it down to a better age so that by the time they've spent 6 years with us, they're not 26. But anyway, so that's why you see the older students. It's very normal for our country. So. Yes. About 55 for both. I think, was it male is a little, I think it's 50 for male and 55 for female, something like that. What about 55? Yeah. And one for Marissa.
What kind of industry do they have there, or how do they make a living? How they earn money?
Okay, so we have 2 kind of populations. Do you want to take it? Two populations. We have the urban area, and then we have the rural or bush remote areas. And so in the urban area, there are like Filipino tuna factories, there's some Chinese stores, there are some fishing industry things. Most of it is from other countries. And then, so you can get a job there, actually get a fortnight or a paycheck in town. But out where we've been working and where the students are coming from, they have vanilla that they export. So they actually process it, bring it out to town, and have to sell it by the kg. They have vanilla, they have cocoa, they have betel nut, probably something you're not familiar with, but one of their staples there. Betel nut, and up in the Highlands they have coffee, but not in our area. So basically it's things that they grow and bring out to town and sell by the kg or the bag. Yes?
He says the country provides the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
How does that compare to the U.S. curriculum?
So in looking at both, I did some looking before I went. And actually, what we do is called FODE, Flexible, Open, Distant Education. And the intention of this program is for it to be something that the students can take outside. And they do it without a teacher is the intention of this. And so it's lessons that are written, and then they've got practice exercises after each one. And then after they do what they call strands, or what we would refer to as a unit, then they go and they do these tests on their own, and then they take that to a local provincial office, like a state office, and they check through all of that work and as best they can, and then they get what you call a certificate. And then at the end of those grades, they would sit for a national exam, and that's how they get that. And so I was curious too about how that would line up with, does 7th grade in the US kind of match this 7th grade FODE curriculum? And in a lot of ways, it is fairly close, actually. So like in math, I know at the end of this year, I was doing a lot of pre-algebra type stuff with them, which is, I remember my 7th grade year, that's kind of what I was doing. And so it's interesting, though, because there are so many gaps in the education that they've had leading up to this. Where we start and where we end are vastly different. So the curriculum itself, I would say, is similar to the standard that we would mark for a U.S. student of the same grade. However, the education that they're getting and what they're being taught does not at all match. And so, I know in English they started with very basics like, okay, what's a noun? What is a verb? And in math, I started with, what does it mean to be in the ones place? And what is a 10? And so it's, we start at a very different level.
But now they're correcting our diagramming and our, what were you doing?
I was trying to multiply and I just missed.
I was doing something on the board. I love that the kids can break down a whole sentence and diagram it out, label it. I just love it. I love watching them. And so I often will do them on the board while they're doing them on their paper. And they're like, you put past participle? That's a present participle. And I was like, who are you? I love it. It's great. But she gets corrected in math. I get corrected in English. They're sharp. They are sharp kids. They've just not had those foundational blocks. So our first term is called Foundations. It's curriculum that we've actually written for the sake of catching them up and getting them ready for the FODE curriculum. And it's done wonders, just making sure they have all their math facts and all their grammar pieces together. And then we can all move on together from that. So, yeah. He's probably going to answer a question, not ask one. Yes, Daddy.
Or just in general?
You mean for RVA? Okay. We can talk like this.
Okay.
So as I said in the video, it's kind of been a piece together. We were thinking about using Christian Light, and we were working really hard to try to piece together a curriculum that would be suitable for the kids and where they were coming from and where we want them to go. And then it was crazy. The Lord just brought people into our life. And there was another Christian school down in Port Moresby, a friend of Bill's who went to school with him at Lopilo, a national woman. And she's doing a school down in Port Moresby, but it's primary. And I said, well, if you were doing a secondary school, because you have to do P&G curriculum to be able to sit the exams, and you cannot go to a university in Papua New Guinea if you don't sit Papua New Guinea exams. So it's kind of like domino effect. We got to get back and find out how do we get them qualified to go the route. And so she said, well, I would do FODE. And we had no idea what FODE was. So we looked it up, and it turns out we were in Port Moresby, and it was just a mile down the road from where we were, the national office. Went in and met the people. Just one thing after another, they were ecstatic that we were going to take their curriculum and that we would be basically teaching or tutoring through it. So they were over the top helpful. You saw some of the people that were dressed in suits or shirts and shaking hands, and that's the national team, the national principal of FODE, and he came up. He loves our school. He came up, toured it, came back again, and brought the kids 20 tablets to use in class and backpacks that were full of supplies, just making it a point to come and see and support. And he actually gave us accreditation, so we're actually a FODE-approved national P&G school. And then just things that the Lord, only he could do. One of our best friends on the field right now is a man named Sir Arnold Amet. And he is the ex-Chief Justice, the ex-Attorney General, the ex-Madang Governor. And his wife is Hatolo, and she is the second in command under the Treasurer of Papua New Guinea. She was just in Washington, D.C. He is thinking about becoming the ambassador for Papua New Guinea here in Washington. And he comes to our house every week for spaghetti when he's back in Madang. He really likes spaghetti, it turns out. But he asked if he could come with his wife, and they sat through orientation with us and were telling the kids, like, hey, this isn't something they're just teaching you about Western. They're not just trying to push their culture on you. This is how we want Papua New Guinea to be. We want you to learn. We want you to be educated. We want you to be respected. And this is how you do it. You need to listen to them. And then he gave them a lot of other rules, like when you stand up, get your hands out of your pocket. Like, he had all these things that he was telling them. This is how you can be a good citizen. So we can't find those kinds of contacts. That has to be the Lord bringing these people into our lives.
I think another way we kind of see a similar thing is when they've made these relationships and things. I didn't see a lot of that happen. But on the hindsight of that, I see a lot of times that those contacts that they've already made, they introduce you to another contact and another contact and another contact. So it's not like we just walk into an office and meet somebody. It's like, oh, hey, I know this person and they do this. And you're, oh, great. And so a lot of times we actually end up inviting them to come to RVA for what we call Mentor Mondays. And so we've had people who are about to be running for office in our local Madang area come and speak with the kids, and so they can be learning about who they're voting for and those people, and then B, they get all of these different people telling them the same things that we're saying, but it's coming from their local people, and so it's not just coming out of our mouths anymore. I mean, I think we all know sometimes when the same people are saying the same things, you kind of stop hearing it. But when someone new comes and says it, you're like, oh, right. So it's really exciting to have that happen too. Nope. So they don't actually. So one of the things, we have a couple of different things around that. One of them is they have to pass. I mean, academically, they have to not get an F. And they all did that, which is great news. So they've passed that. They also have to pass for FODE itself. And so that means doing well enough in just what we do out of that curriculum to remain in that curriculum, still be registered under that name. And then when they go back into the village, we're expecting them to have the same kind of, we call it a passing, which is just the way you walk or the way you act and the way you present yourself and the way that you conduct yourself. We expect them to hold themselves to the same standards that we're holding them to at RVA while they're there, and we're expecting them to be helping the churches while they're in there, while they're at home. And so we're going to ask at the end of it, we're going to ask the elders of the churches in those villages, hey, were the students conducting themselves well? Do you feel like do you feel like they did what they needed to in order to be able to come back to RVA? And so it's kind of a combination of all of those things that says whether or not they can come back. One of the things that we talked about is that sponsorship covers a lot of hygiene items and things. When they're in the villages, you're not going to the store very often. So buying things just to keep yourself smelling fresh and smelling clean are not high on your priority list. When they come to RVA, we expect them to be keeping themselves really well. And it's been, actually, they've done a great job of it. And so we expect them to be washing daily and to be keeping their clothes and their outfits clean and washed. So that's part of it, is that we're just expecting them to kind of change that and to be well groomed.
And some of that is medical too, just to be healthy. A lot of the ideas we got from Sir Arnold Ahmed as well, just how to carry yourself, how to be in a place, and just teaching them to bathe every day, to do these things. They all over New Guinea, if you look in the villages, people have these round, dry areas on them, and it's basically ringworm, and it's just from not having water to wash every day. And so there's little things like that that we're trying to teach them in the first aid and the health and hygiene classes, just ways that they can keep themselves, and then go back and teach their families how to teach themselves to be clean, have a routine that keeps you from having these diseases that aren't necessary. They're just from not healthy habits. So.
And then he mentioned food as well. One thing that may surprise a lot of you is that they take care of their own food. They grow it, most of it. They have gardens that they tend every week at least, and they grow a lot of, we call it cow. It's kind of like a white sweet potato. And they grow that, and then they eat some corn and peanuts and sugar cane and other things and bananas. And so they actually grow all of that pretty much on our campus, and they tend that. That's their job. We actually have absolutely nothing to do with that. And they take care of that. And they also generally are cooking for themselves. There is a Watch Mama, Watch Papa, or dorm parent that is up there, and sometimes they do help with that. But we have the kids on a rotation schedule where for like a week, 3 of them will get up, and in the morning they cook breakfast for everyone, and they make enough that they can take it in a little container and bring it to school to have for lunch that day. And then in the evening, 3 different students will cook a meal for all of them that night. And then they can't grow quite enough in those gardens yet to sustain all of them all the time. So their parents and families from the bush, Kelly talked about one of the things they do is export, and where they have to send food out. Well, sometimes their parents are sending giant bags of cow out to them, or they eat a lot of what they call sago or sack, which is one of their favorite staples to eat. And so their families and parents are sending a lot of that out to them. And then they just cook it up there at what we called Grace Place. So. We'll get back to you in 5 years. Quite all right. This is like teaching. It's great.
We're still thinking 7th and 8th grade, and you're on 12th. So that's a great thing for us to consider, and probably not. We'll probably sit there and recycle them back in the system.
No. So right now, all the uniforms that they wore this year are actually still on our campus. They didn't take those back with them because there's just not a way to keep them nice and clean there. They just don't. It's just not available. So we asked them to keep them there. And then we're actually having new uniform shirts and skirts and everything for next year. And so they all have fresh things to start with. We're not in there, so we don't know all of it, but I would say a big yes to that. Having heard just kind of the things that one of the things, they had an accident on the way home, and they had a car wreck. They are all okay, which is great. The Lord that's another story where the Lord just put his hand on them and took care of it all. But one of the things that came out of that was when they went back in, they were actually singing praises, and they were just telling the Lord, thank you for all of that. And everyone was really excited to have them back in. And what that prevented then, in a lot of ways, was other people being jealous that they got to go to RVA, and either they personally didn't, or their children didn't, or something. And so when they're seeing these students, they know good and well that the education they're getting is a lot different than what they're getting in the bush. And so it is very much something that they're looking at as an opportunity that they won't find somewhere else. And so when they see them, they admire and just... I think there's that deep-seated, like, oh, I know I want to be a part of that, almost. And so we're also hoping, that kind of leads into, we're hoping that as our current students are in the villages right now, that the way that they act after having been at RVA for a year will maybe have a little bit of an impact on future students coming through, that they can kind of look at them and learn from them right now before they get to us, and so that they kind of have that, so... So short-term, RVA itself, just RVA, our goal is to go from 7th to 12th grade. So right now, we just had grade 7, and then next year, those students will be grade 8, and we're bringing in another grade 7. So we'll have grade 7 and 8. And then next year, both of those go up, and we'll bring in new 7th graders until we have grade 7 through 12. And for RVA, that is our goal for RVA itself, is just to have those 6 grades.
So different government officials have been in to see the school in action, and they love it. And they keep asking us to take more students or to start another school to do this again. And we're just like, we're already twitching, like this is at our limit. But we would love to be advisors and help them work through a process, because it's not really hard. If the government had the money to set it up, we could totally be an advisor and help them get it started with the government money and government teachers. The problem is it's really helpful. The schools up in the Highland have expatriates from India that are starting and doing the teaching and then handing it over to PNG. So you almost need someone whose English is there first, or in India, they use English well. So you almost need someone really solid in the English to be the starter for it. So that's where the problem comes in. There is a possibility as we grow and as we have teachers coming back out of our student population, there is a possibility that we could do a satellite program in Ichutang or in another village, because FODE is, as she said earlier, it is a distant learning. It's one of the suggestions that the nation of PNG is putting out there for their education dilemma. So it's supposed to help kids who are in the village. They can get the curriculum, they can go do their work, bring it back, but there's just no way for them to actually process and do the work on their own. But there would be a possibility in the future to do a satellite type thing if we had teachers.
Does the local and national government work with you, or what's their approach with you?
Yes, they love RVA. We've had the educational director from the provincial government out, the education department, and he absolutely is Mr. John Ura, and he loves it. He says, your school, it's like in our curriculum, there's 2 branches of curriculum, the national curriculum and FODE, and both are exam approved. He said it's like in our national curriculums, we're giving them the cow, but they're staple. He said, but what I'm seeing here is you guys have put the meat and the greens and everything with it, and these kids are going to be so blessed. On the national level, the national principal, I already said, he's super supportive, loves it. And we had the secretary to education, the assistant secretary to education come by from Papua New Guinea too and visit. He loved it. Yeah, I think we haven't had anyone come through that hasn't just said, this is what we needed. These kids are going to do great. So super encouraging for us to hear.
Next door in Indonesia, you have the world's largest Muslim country in the world. What's the religious
So it's very different than Indonesia. We have very little Muslim influence in our country, in our province. I'm sure there's more in Port Moresby. There might be more on the border that we share. But in our province, very little. In fact, one of our students, his dad became a Muslim. And because he was out in some island or somewhere and got exposed to something, came back, and he's like, yes, I'm Muslim. So he was doing some prayers and things, and the village basically turned their back and like, we're not doing that. I don't know what you're doing, but you're not going to. And his wife actually took the kids away until he recanted. But the problem with Papua New Guinea is that if you look on the Joshua Project or Operation World, you're going to see that it's green. It says, it's 90% Christian. But it is not 90% Christian. We did a video with our elders, and they were like, please, change our color. This is not true about us. But there's been a lot of missions done. And so there's a lot of Baptist and Lutheran and Catholic and Pentecostal and Revival and Jehovah's Witness. You have every religion that you have here, you would have there. And they take it, and they mix it with a little animism, and you wouldn't recognize it. If you were a really practicing Catholic, you would go and see the Catholicism there and be like, what is going on? It's not the same. Every religion is very works-oriented. You're on the scale constantly across the board. And so if you ask people about salvation, about the gospel, that's what they're going to give you. But everybody, they'll say, their government says, we are a Christian nation. They're proud of it. They are going to be... Our prime minister that just went into office a couple years ago said we are going to be the richest black Christian nation in the world, and that's their goal right now. So. I don't, but I can find it for you. You must be a missionary. I'll be hooking you up with that.
All right, so those were awesome questions. This feels like a great class. Good job. Kelly is going to tell a quick story really quick, and then we'll close up, maybe.
Yes, I want to tell you one quick story about one of our students. Salman is his name. And if you've been following the Itutang story, you know that we have 9 villages, and all of them have had exposure to the gospel. The last one does not have a church in it, and it's because it's a Catholic-run station. They have their own school and their own hospital, and so they told the elders and the teaching team, if you bring that teaching up here, we will close everything down. There will be no school and no hospital. So they didn't. One of the ladies, the Pars are sponsors of theirs. She was probably about 20 or so, and she was listening to what her family was saying about this false teaching, these false prophets called new tribes that were coming up and trying to ruin everything. And so she thought, okay, when they go down to the other village, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to hear what they say, and I'm going to take my Bible and I'm going to prove it. She's just a fiery lady. Her name's Amelia. And so she went down and she listened to the Bible teaching that the elders were doing, listened to Creation to Christ, went every day, and she kept coming home and checking her Bible against what was being said, because there's a national Bible. So she was checking her talk Pidgin. She's very literate in both languages. And she was checking it, and she's like, goes back to our family, these are not false prophets. They're just saying exactly what's in the Bible. That's all they're teaching. And so she became a believer. And she left and went and married one of our Itutang guys named Joshua. And so they came out and started working with us in Madang. Well, her brother's family is part of the family that is, this is live streaming, isn't it? Part of the family that is kind of holding us out of this last village. And so come to find out, he has a son that's living near Joshua and Amelia in town, and they want to send him to RVA. Well, we have a couple of RVA picks from the community that we can sign into school. So he comes, And he is great. He is an awesome student. He's just super happy. He's upbeat and excited about everything that we're doing. He sits in Bible classes and learns. And come to find out, he's telling his dad all of this. And so as he tells his dad all of these stories and things that are happening, his dad decides, I want to hear this teaching. So he goes to one of the local churches and asks the elders if he can hear the creation of Christ teaching. And that's all I know. I haven't heard if they set it up or how this is happening. But the Lord is using RVA in a roundabout way to reach this family and this village. So we're just excited. We're excited to see where the Lord will take it and how these kids are going to be used. This is just the end of year 1. So we're excited to see what will happen as we move forward.
Yeah, that's RVA in a nutshell. We can't stand up here and tell you what we do every single day, but this is some of the ways we see the Lord working, and it is one of the most tiring and exciting things that I've ever been a part of, and it's amazing. It really is the biggest blessing just to be able to be there and do that, and just come back to a big thank you to you all, and then we want to be really careful and say thank you to God too, because we know that it doesn't exist without Him. It's for Him, and it's through Him, and it's by Him. So we just want to be careful to say a big thank you as often as we ask for help. She says this all the time. As loud as we cry for help, we need to cry thank you. So we want to be careful to do that as well. So.
What a blessed time. Amen. We have a great big God, do we not? He's doing awesome things all over the globe, and how wonderful that we get to be a small part of what the Lord is doing. It's been a blessed day. Be sure and talk with them if you're interested in sponsorship. They can get you information about that. You guys will be going back the day after Christmas. Is that it? 2 days after Christmas? Be headed back. So you pray for them while they're here, that they have rest, and again, that they have time with their family, that the Lord would just multiply that many times over. But again, thank you so much for sharing with us tonight. Just want to remind everyone, for the ladies, this coming Saturday is the Christmas at Broadway, and that's at 9:30, am I right? 10 until 12:30, 10 to 12:30 for all the ladies, and all the proceeds of that go to missions. And Liz, 10:30 to 12. All right. Come 30 minutes early. You're allowed to do that. All right. And so it'll be a great time for all the ladies. And pray for the senior adults. We have 40 of them leaving early Tuesday morning, going to Lancaster, get back late Friday night. So pray for traveling mercies for all of those that are going on that trip. And as we said, those that are having surgeries, those that have lost loved ones, the needs are great. And in a faith family, there's always people that need to be lifted up. There's always people that are hurting. There's always people that are grieving and mourning. That's part of being in a faith family. And so we weep with those that weep, and we rejoice with those that rejoice, and we lift up one another to bear one another's burdens. When you take a burden and help share it, you've cut it in half. And so we want to be that for each other. And so I know that you're praying for all these folks. All right, if you would, let's stand together, and we'll close in a word of prayer. Again, thank you, Marissa and Kelly. And they'll be down here if you want to have more dialogue with them. I'm sure they'll be glad to talk with you. But we're grateful for the work of God. Father God, we do thank you. We praise you for the blessings of this day. It has been a blessed day. And we are a blessed people because we have a Savior. And we have Holy Scripture in our language. We have breath in our lungs to give you praise. We are a blessed people tonight. And so, Father, I thank you for the blessings of this day, for worship, for all that has been a part of this day. We thank you for time together tonight, for conversations around the table, and also, Lord, to hear about what you are doing in PNG. So continue, Lord, to bless your work wherever it might be. All of our missionaries, Lord, we lift them up to you. We pray you'd give them, Lord, your strength, all the provision they need to do the work that you've called them to do. And Lord, how wonderful that we can just be a small part of what you're doing in this world. We recognize, Lord, that you certainly do not need us, but Lord, you've chosen to involve people in your work, and we thank you for it. Bless each one tonight is our prayer. Watch over us as we depart and make our way home. And we ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you.